When we were sort of talking before the show, you'd mentioned time you'd spent doing like film contingency and these types of things. So one of the challenges when we always set out pricing battles between Ben and myself, it's always like, here is what is broadly a net new risk or something you may not have seen before. But that's not always the case. How do you think about when you see something that maybe not doesn't have a direct comparison? It's not, a really consistent, frequent like motor book or something that has a huge amount of data and historical evidence for it.
Yeah, and I think it's all about the data, right? And to paraphrase, I'm going to go with, it was Voltaire, right? If the data did not exist, it would be necessary to invent it, right? So we have to go and say, okay, I don't have all this perfect data. What can I get that's similar? What's an analogy to it? So the example I was thinking about was, there was one recently with Carrie Fisher in Star Wars, where we had a key actor pass away. But an even more classic example we had was with, people are really going to be questioning my movie choices after this, but it's Too Fast, Too Furious. This was FF7, and Paul Walker, the star of the film, died during the filming, right? And so you look at this and you say, how am I going to, now we've had this huge loss, and this is probably the most expensive one in the history of film contingency, and now what do I do as I price the business going forward, right? How do I incorporate that? Because that's not going to happen every year.
Yeah.
But you start to dig, you start to go through, maybe it's Wikipedia or you look in your own history and you say, okay, wait, well, we've had lead actors die before, right? And you can go back and you can find some other examples. There was one with Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, who actually died on screen, basically during the filming.
Yeah, The Crow, wasn't it?
The Crow, yeah. Where they had similar to this Rust thing we saw now, where it was like the wrong bullet or the wrong gun, and so we have that loss, and then we had another one with John Candy, where he actually died during filming a comedy, and those events were not as severe.
Yeah.
So now you start to say, okay, now if I've had 3-4 events in 40 years, but then why was Fast and Furious so much worse? And you start to say, okay, well, all right, John Candy, this was a comedy. They were near the end. Brandon Lee, this was an action movie, but they were also close enough to the end they could manage. And then the big thing is, well, now actually something has changed. Nowadays, we have these CGI capabilities we did not have in the past. So they could actually, they were in the middle of the movie instead of at the end. Yeah. And there's actually a way now that they could continue to kind of shoot. So they used his younger brother and CGI to finish the film. Yeah. So then from the actuarial perspective, you say, okay, well, now I've got frequency. Got these years, so I can kind of say a frequency. And then I have a view on severity. And then I can say, oh, and now I do see there is a trend, right? Because the movies can get more expensive, more complicated. So I have to take those earlier losses and probably increase them, what we would do today.
Yeah.
So then you're on your way,
Yeah.